Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker.
All right, everyone, welcome to episode 26 of Tokyo Wave. We are your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. Today we are joined by a returning guest, the Akiya Hunter, real estate consultant, event producer, and extreme metal curator, Matt Ketchum.
On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random stuff.
Here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan's tallest skyscraper, Torch Tower, to be built in Tokyo.
Bank of Japan sees less gloomy view but keeps things ultra loose.
Japan Weather Agency pulls ads from site after 1 day due to inappropriate content.
This week in Japan.
All right, let's get started with our first story this week. Japan's tallest skyscraper, the Torch Tower, to be built in Tokyo.
Kyodo News reported that Japan's tallest skyscraper, around 390 meters high, which is scheduled to be built in front of Tokyo Station in fiscal 2027, will be named Torch Tower. This was announced by the developer Mitsubishi Estate Company on Thursday.
The new landmark, with 63 stories above ground and 4 underground, will be a complex of offices, commercial facilities, and a hall accommodating about 2,000 people. A luxury hotel and an observation deck where visitors can view Mount Fuji, Japan's tallest mountain, which will be located in the upper floors.
The name Torch Tower comes from a wish to lighten Japan like a torch, Mitsubishi said in a statement.
Well, I hope no arsonists catch wind of this.
Sounds like an epic place for a fight as well.
Finish him at the Torch Tower. The planned skyscraper is part of a development project with 3 other buildings and a 7,000 square meter plaza slated for construction in a 31,000 square meter area near Tokyo's Marunouchi business and commercial district.
You know, this is really positive news with everyone really worried about the economy and whatnot, to see that, you know, real estate construction is still going strong and there's still a lot of investment here in Tokyo.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things sort of like Olympics next year. They're going to happen, okay? It's the Torch Tower. We have to have the Olympics now.
Yeah. Up next, Bank of Japan takes less gloomy view but keeps things ultra loose.
Bloomberg has reported that the Bank of Japan took a less pessimistic view of the economy while leaving its aggressive monetary stimulus untouched, 1 day after Yoshihide Suga took over as prime minister, pledging to continue his predecessor's stance on monetary and fiscal policy.
The BOJ kept its key interest rate at negative 0.1% and left its asset purchases unchanged, according to a statement from the bank on Thursday. This result was expected by about 95% of the 44 economists surveyed by Bloomberg.
Suga, who was elected Wednesday for the country's top job as prime minister, has indicated he sees no need for any immediate changes in BOJ policies that have helped keep financial markets stable and get credit to companies amid COVID-19. Economists see Thursday's decision fitting in with a pattern of little change for the time being, barring any sharp worsening of the pandemic or a run on markets.
Nobuyasu Atago, economist at Okasan Securities, said that until the new administration gets settled, the BOJ will sit on the fence and monitor the effect of its policy unless markets move a lot. The economic outlook is improving somewhat, so even if consumer prices turn negative in the short term, the BOJ will be able to say price expectations are holding up in the long term.
The bank's upgrade of its economic assessment was the first since the virus hit, reflecting a bottoming of Japan's slump. Have we seen the worst?
We'll see.
Let's hope so. I've been thinking with looking at the global situation, it really has started to look like Japan is going to get out of this economic funk a lot faster than other developed countries, especially those in the West who really seem to have a rougher time with the coronavirus pandemic.
I.e. the U.S.?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I've already personally seen and experienced a lot of opening back up in small ways here and there, specifically with, European countries that took care of this properly. In Oceania, down in Australia as well, they're starting to, already talk about restarting and revamping a lot of business deals and ventures that were already kind of on the table, but, were delayed due to coronavirus.
It's kind of funny. The island countries seem to do a better job. It's like, isn't that the exact opposite of what you would have expected?
Yeah, but it's true. It's true.
I thought when this whole thing started, we're all going to die, but we didn't. Yay. Sorry, United States. Good luck. Next up, Japan Weather Agency pulls ads from its site after one day due to inappropriate content.
The Mainichi reported that Japan's weather agency has yanked ads from its website just a day after debuting them due to a stream of inappropriate adverts appearing.
The Japan Meteorological Agency began carrying ads on its site on September 15th, but pulled them the following day because some did not meet the agency's standards. There is no set timetable for the ads to return, and the JMA stated it would investigate the details and take the required action.
The plan to put advertising on the government agency site was implemented to help cut costs. The site hosted real-time advertising, or ads, that changed depending on the visitor's search and page viewing history, and they began to appear at 2 p.m. on September 15th. Right out of the gate, however, a slew of inappropriate ads began to appear, including a potentially deceptive one for a hair care product sales site. By 9 a.m. the next day, the agency had apparently identified ads for about 100 websites that did not meet the JMA's display standards, including those for anything that may violate laws or ordinances or endanger public peace or morals.
Morals, you say? I wonder what kind of advertisements those were. And it's based on your search history, right?
Yeah. So it's their fault anyways, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be going to the Japan Meteorological Agency's website anytime soon.
No, it's really funny. Once you fall into kind of the Japanese ad system, it's really wild what they can get away with. And they're running a lot of that on Google too.
You know what I think it is? Google's AI is really good at English and probably other European languages, but Japanese is so hard to parse. So I think a lot of things still fall through the cracks.
Oh yeah. Like, you're not supposed to have a certain amount of text on ads, right? But in Japan, there's text all over the ads, right? It's like only text. It's wild. I mean, I've gotten in trouble a couple times with my girlfriend when she sees what kinds of ads are coming up on my phone.
Twitter ads are also really bad. I mean, I get constant ads for these, like, matchmaking sites. And it's like, geez, no.
It's matchmaking, pornographic anime. Wait, maybe I shouldn't say that. But seriously, have you guys gotten this?
What are you watching there on that phone there, boy?
No, it's like a story that starts off, and it's like it wants you to continue reading the manga or whatever, right? But it's obviously going in a very crude direction.
I came here to fix the pipes.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's ridiculous. It's like, in the targeting that, I've run these campaigns. They must be setting it up. It's just like, if you're male in Japan, you're going to get this ad.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what's really weird though? I mean, it's a government agency, right? What are they doing running online ads in the first place?
Some guy's like, look how much money we can make. All right, and up next we have Matt Ketchum, the Akiya Hunter, real estate consultant, event producer, and extreme metal curator.
Originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Matt moved to Japan in 2009 after graduating from Hobart and William Smith colleges to teach English in Miyako, a small port town in rural Iwate Prefecture in the northeast of the main Japanese island of Honshu. abundant seafood, open-minded musicians, a well-paying easy job, and a low cost of living, Matt was enamored with Inaka life. But then, on March 11, 2011, at 2:46 p.m., all of that was washed away by a 37.9-meter tsunami, and he was left standing outside of a hilltop temple, homeless, watching the city burn.
After 2 months of organizing response teams in Miyako, Matt moved to Tokyo to work with art galleries and NPOs active in Tohoku. Fast forward through a diverse career spanning market research, consulting, and most recently serving as executive director of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and you could say Matt is a jack of all trades and master of fun.
Underlying all of that, Matt has relentlessly pursued his passion for independent, boundary-pushing music as a guitarist for black metal bands Dark Corpse, Wretch, and now Worship Pain. A respected booker and tour manager, and a data-hungry documentarian cataloging and analyzing the physical history of Japan's rich underground music cultures, a methodology which he has recently begun applying to the Akiya market, culminating in the genesis of Akiya and Inaka.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
So, Matt, thank you so much for coming back on Tokyo Wave.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I'm so tired.
Did we make you sleepy?
No, it's everything's good, man. happy to be here.
So you're living the Akiya life now. You're out in Yugawara.
Yeah, down near Atami. It's awesome. The whole teleworking thing that gets done down there, and really anywhere outside of the city is. I mean, once you start doing it, why would you do anything else? You know, I'm doing booking and various kind of probably what we're going to talk about today with music and live streaming and video editing and stuff. Obviously, we're doing the Akiya and Inaka stuff down there, but also just getting out and exploring a bunch of stuff. I just bought a surfboard. So I'm happy about that. I haven't used it yet, though, so we'll see if that actually comes to fruition.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, but, live dangerously and all that stuff. So, yeah, down in the Inaka, doing the Inaka thing and actually making it work. So I'd like to say the proof is in the pudding.
The abandoned pudding.
Yes, it's just not moldy.
So before we start, Matt and I have something in common in that we both spent years in Iwate. Well, actually, you spent years, I spent months, but...
Honestly, it's not that different. It feels like years for me, but if I think about it, it was probably like a year and a half.
Right. But so, funny thing, recently the Inaka in Iwate that I spent a lot of time in, which is Tono City in Iwate Prefecture, recently created something that thankfully they did not have when I was still in high school, their first brew pub. And beyond creating the brew pub, they have actually just in the past few months, developed and released their first bottled beer, which we have today in the Tokyo Wave studio. So to start this discussion off with a bang, we will do a beer review.
There we go.
I made a nice sound.
Yeah, it was a good sound. It's already good. You should buy it.
So this is called the Tono Lager.
5% alcohol. And it's actually been jointly produced by Zumona Beer, which is an established beer brand in Tono, and Tono Brewing, which is the new upstart brew pub.
The one and only, is that the name of, what is one and only?
I think it's the name of this... that's what it is. It's the name of this project. And so actually these one and only beers are being brewed by these upstart breweries across Japan. Different craft breweries are participating in this project. And it was actually started because of COVID-19.
Oh, really?
So lots of microbreweries are having a really rough time because of the pandemic. And they created this program actually so that part of the proceeds from each sale go to support breweries who are having a hard time continuing operations through the pandemic.
Oh, that's great, because that's like exactly what we're doing with the live stream stuff. Except not with beer. Well, I mean, we're drinking beer, but...
Well, this is a lager beer, as Aaron just said, and let's see if it tastes any good, guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Smells good.
Nice.
Oh, hell yes.
It's good.
Yay.
Is that the review?
That's about it. So it's funny, my friend back in my hometown, Chattanooga, Tennessee, has a podcast where he does nothing but this, beer reviews. And I've been on the podcast a few times to talk about Tono and this new Tono brewing, but I never had a beer to bring. So maybe next time I go back in, 2025, after the pandemic settles down in the United States, we can review the beer.
No, it's good seeing that they're sending this stuff out. There's a nano brewery over in Yokohama that's closely affiliated with a lot of the venues that we work with too, called Thrash Zone. That has been, I know they've been playing around with the idea of actually starting to ship bottles, because I don't think they had bottles either up until very recently. I don't know if they're doing that yet. I sincerely hope that they have started, because it's excellent stuff. But it's really encouraging to see not only just, okay, number one, it's just craft beer in general being shipped. That's cool. Number two, it's Tono that's out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Absolutely.
So
nowhere.
if that can get out, then presumably a lot of other things can get out. And number three, that this is kind of like a joint effort on the part of a number of microbreweries with a little bit of backing from organizations that are a little bit more established. So that's a really cool thing.
All right, guys. Well, my Friday is going better already.
Guys, this beer is really good. I haven't had beer in about 6 months. In the Japanese commercials, how like they get like shots of the Japanese like oh my god, like it's like really good. Like they get like, man, the Japanese enjoying beer and like the official commercials. That's what I feel like.
I kind of feel like the reaction that Japanese men have in the beer commercials of Japan is very similar to the reactions that like American women have to shampoo.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a very similar response, I think. Although that being said, like legit, even with, I personally prefer Sapporo over the rest of the top three, that being Asahi and then Kirin as well. But when it's cold and it's hot out, like I kind of get that reaction.
Oh yeah.
Like that's not so off base.
Well, today is actually supposed to be the last hot day of this year.
Thank
it's
God.
like 32 degrees outside right now, humid as all hell. But this beer makes it all right.
I was just having some beers on the beach the other day. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Beers on the beach.
Yeah.
Isn't there a commercial about that?
Yeah,
Were they Corona beers?
No. I've had Corona beers before during Corona, but not on the beach yet.
Come on, you got to complete the look.
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, so let's get right into it. Matt, you're a big music guy, and obviously you're a very important figure within the black metal scene here in Tokyo and now in Yugawara.
Yeah, right.
So we want to just get started by asking, what got you into music? What instruments do you play, and what's up with your music label?
That's got into music, like generally speaking. So that's a story that's very closely related to why I'm in Japan. Back when I was 14, I started going to like punk rock shows in Pittsburgh, my hometown. And I think it was the summer of 2000. And I still don't know why this happened, but from about the summer of 2000 to 2004, every summer vacation, there was this slew of Japanese hardcore punk or metal or like otherwise somehow kind of off the beaten path sort of underground music bands coming through, and they were all absolutely phenomenal, and none of them could speak English, and really I just had these great experiences seeing these independent bands coming through that spoke a completely different language and were from halfway around the world, and that was really interesting to me. And so that's kind of just why I started studying Japanese in the first place. So there's that. I play guitar. That's going actually not all that well recently. A lot of people, maybe it's not true. It's definitely on social media. I'm sure you've seen the posts about like, oh man, in Corona time, like just sit down, relax, and be creative. It'll all be okay. You've got so much time. And I'm like, fuck, are you kidding me? Nah, dude, like I'm stressed out. Like I've got various different, and for whatever reason, the creative juices, at least so far as compositionally are concerned, kind of aren't flowing for me right now. And that happens, right? I think one issue maybe that is well, I mean, it's in business, it's in music, it's everywhere, of like always be on, always be producing, always be creative, always. It's like, nah, it's like a wave, man. Like sometimes you're on it, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're not on it for like 6 months, right? And it happens. It sucks. But I think one thing that a lot of artists and business managers and owners and stuff can easily do, especially in kind of in modern times, is like, if you're not producing that high quality shit, like you better fucking apologize and make sure that, you know, you get back on. It's like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I can't do anything about it right now. So I'm very aware of right now. I'm in a lull, which is cool. It happens. It's happened before. It'll happen again. I'll get out of it.
Yeah, you have to give yourself a chance to take a break. Just relating that to a lot of stuff I've seen about people trying to be super productive right now, but it's a freaking pandemic,
Yeah, there's I mean, people are stressed out with work life in general. They're stressed out with family life in general, stressed out with social life, stressed out with fucking everything, just in normal times. And now we've got a goddamn pandemic. Like, ease off. Man, back the fuck off. I'll make something good when I make something good. Otherwise, like, ride along with me on this, man. Let's support each other. But when you start getting these sort of like demands for high quality output all the time amidst a pandemic, it's a little bit off-putting, let's say. Which sort of segues into, Parker, you were asking about with the label. That's kind of moving. We've actually got hopefully a compilation coming out soon. So for the last 5 or so months, we've been recording a bunch of audience-less concerts, and then streaming those to raise funds for the venues and bands. That's actually a longer story, but for the venues and bands in Japan's independent scene. And we have our own sound engineer who works with us on that. He normally actually does a lot of the sumo competitions around Tokyo, is his day job. He also is the bassist and vocalist of a band called Butcher ABC, he wears a gas mask.
Can't make this shit up.
He's got a gas mask that has a mic in it where the dongle should be.
Oh my god!
And he plays a laser.
All I can say is I want to hear more about this dongle.
And he plays like a laser green fretless bass. Taka is his name, and he also runs. Actually, I'll totally hype him here. His production studio is called Studio Chaosk, Chaosk. But we work with him, and so he produces professional quality live recordings of the concerts that we're doing. Which means that, well, even if you get rid of the video, suddenly you've got a live album, right? So we're slowly but surely stitching those, putting those, kind of compiling those into albums themselves, but then also stitching them together, because we've got 7 bands we've worked with now to do these concert streams, and need to put together a benefit compilation for at least one of the venues that we've been working with. I'm actually a little bit uncertain of how we'd want to go about it. It could be the case that we release it and have a few beneficiaries, but of course, if you do that, well, then each of them get a percent, which means that each of them get less money than one would if they just had 100% of the proceeds. So we still need to figure that part out. But yeah, the label, so far as that is concerned, is moving kind of slowly but steadily. With regards to onboarding bands at the moment, that's like the last thing on my mind right now. So it's a conversation that I can bring up really easily, but just so much is on the table at the moment. That's actually not something I've been moving too heavily on, which I hate to admit, but there it is.
So your label, the A&R, is tired of this shit.
Oh, it's not even that. It's just we've got so much. There's just so much else that's immediately in front of us to take advantage of, or to like work with and develop. Be that again, these streams. We're actually working on a number of like private concerts for. I mean, I just said private, but like public concerts that just have a very low audience capacity out in the middle of nowhere, which logistically is a whole lot of work. There's just a whole bunch, and for whatever reason, the getting new bands on board isn't so pressing. I feel like I'm totally shitting over my own label, but
one question I had is like, I mean, if you've got your own label and obviously, you've got a very loyal fan base, and do you get like random emails from, it's like, I play you black metal. Can you sign me and pay me like $1 million?
No, but well, maybe not nobody, because that's a blanket statement, but it's insane the amount of requests that you get for that kind of shit. I mean, and like, for example, with us, with Kaala, we're pretty damn like blunt and overt with like, okay, we work with the Japanese underground extreme music scene. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to live in Japan. Like if you're an international band that's touring in Japan, well, then maybe we can do a split, or, there's ways to work it, but like at least have some semblance of relationship to the Japanese scene. And nobody even tries. I don't know if they are purposefully omitting that in the hopes that we pay attention, or they just haven't done any research at all. But most of the time, I mean, people are just like, oh no, we're a really great band. We're from Greece, and we think that, we're the ticket to your label becoming a huge success. So please sign us.
From Greece.
Wherever. Like I probably get, I mean, not hundreds of them, but, between 5 and 10 a week.
Wow.
I don't think I respond to any of them.
Matt, I had a question for you. Last time you were on, we touched this for a second, but talking about promoting here in Japan.
Yeah.
And so these artists that you have on your label or that you work with, if you wouldn't mind like sharing some maybe like secrets or like tips and tricks for promotions here in Japan.
The one thing about it is like there's no easy fix.
Right.
Like legit, the clout is what gets you a whole lot. And that really is only gained by going to the shows. I mean, this is actually a really interesting point now that shows kind of don't happen, right? The whole way that, like the way that I got into the scene and was accepted and started booking and recording and playing and all of that stuff, that avenue doesn't exist anymore. You can't, it's like, oh, okay, it's Friday. Like I always go to a concert. I mean, that's what I did. Just go to concerts fucking constantly.
Right.
Eventually somebody notices that awkward dude in the corner who never talks to anybody. Who's me. Right. And, eventually after probably at least months, if honestly not years, you slowly but surely kind of get integrated into the community. People start, understanding who you are. They ask you to play with them, go to a party, whatever. I mean, that's how the scene grows and develops. And that is not possible right now. And so I honestly, maybe my tip right now, like specifically with regards to how to do this in Corona time, is you're barking up the wrong tree. Like,
try again next year.
Don't try. I mean, maybe like do some research, educate yourself and in, like bands and genres and cities and stuff. But so far as actually being able to break into the scene, I don't know how you would do it right now. I'm speaking with a few international bands at the moment, who are, of all things, so this is kind of Kaala related, but more just like kind of consulting independently. So there's these two country bands, and there is no following really of country in Japan. And so they're interested in breaking into the market. I'm like, or actually specifically touring is first what they came during Corona. This is like 2 weeks ago too. So number one, and they're relatively like, they're not nobodies. So presumably they have managers. And in fact, I know they have managers and money behind them. And the first thing they lead with is, oh, we want to go on a tour in Japan. Like, all right, now really?
Can we even get here?
Exactly. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
If you looked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, I mean,
yeah, and so
it kind of says no.
Yeah, and so but I mean that there's actually I'm not sure if silver lining is the correct word. There's a neat sort of pivot in there though, which is that now is the time that experimentation is like really quite acceptable. There's a few new technologies coming out. One of them being like Zycle, which is the ticketing service that we use for our streaming stuff. They're an excellent service, and they don't have any upfront charge, any upfront cost. They just take a cut of whatever your revenue is. And so it's actually not too difficult at all. Like going on tour in Japan, no, like that ain't happening. But for like basically no money up front, if you want to start poking around about how to digitally get yourself onto websites that are posting, Japanese concerts and sort of, weave yourself in there and see if you can get at least a little bit of digital traction so that in a year and a half or 2 years time, when fingers crossed, it's possible to tour again. Well, maybe that'll end up actually being the thing that helps you get, the following that you'll need in order to justify coming all the way over here.
Right. As I hear you talk about this, it's funny to think about how far behind technology is in recreating the live experience.
It's unless you have like full body haptic suits and VR tech that's at least, I don't know, like 5 years more advanced than it currently is, you're not going, like, they're two different things.
Yeah.
You cannot make one equal the other. No matter how drunk you get in front of your computer.
Well, we're trying today.
Right. And this is a point of frustration for myself, is that it's very easy to, when kind of trying to parse out and make sense of everything that we're going through and have been going through for the last 7, 8, 9 months. It's very easy to sort of think of and cognize, what streaming represents as like, oh, it's concerts, and it's not, right? It's consumable visual media is really what it is, which is a funny thing too when it's not a music video, because if we're talking about music, that's like an aural experience. It's not a visual experience. And so one of many things that I'm really interested in kind of watching progress is how music consumption kind of evolves in Corona time, specifically with regards to, well, if we're doing a bunch of streamed video, well, then are people going to start paying more attention to that element of the musical experience than they are to the music element of the musical experience?
Well, and that's a really interesting point. I hate to say this because it sounds kind of elitist, but, on YouTube, you see all these videos of all kinds of music, right? And you use almost YouTube as like this modern MP3 player to listen to your favorite songs.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a lot of live show recordings on YouTube. And, whenever I like come across a song that I want to listen to and I click on it and it's one of the live versions, I'm like, oh shit, it's the live one. It's going to sound like garbage. And I immediately click it off and like try and find the album version. But obviously if it's a live recording of a show, then that's kind of the deal. But obviously if there's no audience, are there things that you can do to try and reduce the sound issues?
Well, for sound, for us, there is no problem because we're probably working with like 12 or so mics, so everything it's a proper studio production that we're doing. But it is just immensely interesting and frequently funny to not just watch, but actually be part as the people recording, and you're there with the band as you're doing this, how they deal with doing a concert that doesn't have an audience. Because usually when they go to a venue and they spend time to set stuff up and there's money involved and like it's an event, usually there's an audience. Like that's a key component to what a concert is. And so, they fully understand that, but there's this very conspicuous sort of void in front of all of the bands when they're doing this. That is the lack of an audience, and they really don't know what to do with that. And so frequently it starts off very awkwardly, actually, because they don't have any kind of visual cues where you're reading the audience like, oh, okay, those people have had enough to drink, or, all right, we're 15 minutes over, or, one of various types of cues that happen. They got none of that. And so watching them kind of navigate in real time it's almost like how to interact with themselves when in with the absence of an audience, that is usually the thing that gives them, and myself as a musician as well, like the audience really gives you a lot of energy. And so if you don't have that, like what do you do? And so frequently there's like little sitcom-y kind of things that we end up doing. Like, no, like go over to the bar and interact with the bartender who's the owner, and just go have like a human thing over there. Or we do these stupid, for our streams, we do these, or try to anyway, these stupid little introductions. Like the one coming up, I thought it'd be funny to like look like I was sleeping on a bench in the middle of the day and just like wait with a bunch of beer cans around me.
Like animate.
Yeah. And just like wake up and be like, oh shit, I'm late. I gotta go to the show. And then just run with the camera into the concert, and they're already playing, and just like start it like that. We've done.
I saw the one where
I hid the beer.
You found you look around all over the place like you're looking for something, and then you open up this like big like pot, and there's like a big beer inside.
Yeah.
I get a kitchen.
Yeah, that's El Puente out in Yokohama.
That was funny.
Which used to be a Spanish restaurant. There's a long story behind my history with that, but yeah, it used to be a full service Spanish restaurant, and then the owner died.
What, were you in the mariachi band or what?
No, I worked. So I worked at the Sister. I was a bartender at the Sister bar. Well, it was a restaurant too called Bar Barrera, which is a mouthful in Japanese. In Meguro, and the guy who owned that, who is an excellent chef. He's from somewhere near Osaka, but he also owned El Puente. And so I actually worked at El Puente this one night, which was the first time that I met the eventual new owner. His name's Shiggy. But he and I bartended this one night. And then sometime in early August of 2012, I think, he died of heat stroke. And so Barbarera in Meguro, that just shut down. And I'm not sure what happened, but Shiggy came in to run El Puente, but he's not a chef. And so over the course of, well, at this point, like 8 years, it went from being like a highly functional, really pretty good Spanish restaurant into a really dirty, true rock and roll haven that also happens to have a kitchen and a bunch of Spanish decorations, but never actually cooks anything.
Well, I mean, but if, in the middle of the show, you're just like, you know what? Can I order like a paella?
Yeah, and paella was the specialty too. It's really good. And it's still a functioning kitchen. They actually recently they started doing, I think it was like barbecue offs or something there. Like they do have food things that are going on. But yeah, that was
black metal and Churrasco.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
You're now listening to Tokyo Wave.
What do you think about like interacting with chat as far as like, like on Twitch live stream and YouTube and also like, do you think this is just an excellent time to start doing kind of like the bedroom style live streams for any aspiring musicians?
That is a very complex question. Yeah, I think now is the time to experiment, if that's, bedroom streams and just, again, educating yourself about technology that's out there that you haven't bothered touching before. Try that. Right. Absolutely. There's never anything wrong with doing that. That being said, one thing that I'm extremely concerned about is if streaming and YouTube and just kind of the way that we're consuming music currently, if that goes on for long enough, that's sitting in front of your screen. And for me, the thing that is the most important thing about music is, again, it's actually not even really the music. It's the experience of the music. It's the environment. It's the ecosystem and being part of it. It's the scene, right?
Right. The scene
is the important thing.
Yeah.
Just sitting and watching a band. Okay, that's cool. Like, I'm not against that by any means, but that has none of the kind of social value that being part of a scene is in. And so one thing that I'm extremely concerned about and watching very closely is sort of the trajectory that basically consumption of music products takes over the next probably 6 to 12 months, because my fear is if we get really used to streaming and Twitch and YouTube and all that stuff, if it becomes normalized, maybe call me old school or something, but there is something truly, truly, truly valuable in that visceral, physical kind of spatial experience of going to a live concert. And if we get used to something like streaming so much so that we kind of just don't even bother thinking about, oh yeah, we could do that, but we're not going to. If it just becomes like gets eliminated from the conversation, that would be a scary world for me to live in.
It's heartbreaking to think about. I love your bringing up the scene. The best bands are all curated in a scene.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And,
if you don't have, one of the major problems with, booking in general, but definitely in Tokyo, is there's so many predatory bookers out there who are not participant in any scene. They're just like shitty event curators who they'll take any musician, quote unquote musician that comes at them, whatever, and there will be no no logic behind what it is they've put together, why they're playing at a certain venue, a certain time, certain price, certain lineups, all of this stuff. Like if you don't curate all of that, you're a hack. Like I'll come out and say that. Like don't even try arguing with me. You're a fucking hack.
You're a bunch of fucking hacks.
Yeah. Like I have no time
Yes,
for that.
skeezers.
And there's a lot of them, so much so that a lot of audience members, bands themselves think that pay to play is like there's some sort of mandate that's how the system works. And okay, everybody just does play to play. It's like, no, that's a lot of lazy people who don't know what they're doing. And because pay to play it's super easy to just offload all of the responsibility onto the bands, which is incredibly predatory. But it's very easy to do. So that's why everybody does it. But from go, when I started booking, never once, like we cover all of the costs, right? Which is a great way too. It's quite a bit risky, but to light a fire under your ass and make sure that you hit those quotas, because if you don't, you're 100% liable for all of the costs incurred, right? And I remember the first, I've only lost, I think it was 8,000 yen. So I've actually had a pretty good run as a booker thus far, fingers crossed. But I don't think like for the first 4 or so concerts that I put on, I didn't have the $3,000 in the bank that I needed to cover the costs of the concerts that I was putting on. So if like 10 people came, like I couldn't pay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done.
I left the lights on my Jaguar on outside. I have to go out and check it. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but I mean, that's the thing that makes you say, "Oh shit!" Like, I better get those tickets sold.
Yeah.
And in order to do that too, and this is what a lot of bookers, all these pay to play people, they just sell fucking tickets, right? And they push them on people. They're pushers, right? And if you build a scene, if you're a participant in a scene, in an ecosystem, in an ecology of music and creativity and art, frequently you don't even have to sell anything.
It's organic.
It's just organic, and people are like, oh shit, Kaala's doing something. All right, I'm on board with that. Yeah, I'll throw down 2,000 yen. Right? I mean, of course you go out there and you do advertise, but you don't really have to worry about it just because you've kind of, I don't like saying it in this, but you've, ingratiated yourself. People know you. There's trust. There's clout is the word that I used previously. And if you do that, then, it's pretty turnkey. You just push something out there. It's curated. People trust you. They know it's good. Like, there's the thing. Go do it. Right?
Well, this whole pandemic situation has changed everything. And obviously, the live music scene has been, if not murdered, but deeply impacted by what has happened over the past months. And you talked about, doing these live streams and how you have to change the whole idea of going to a show in order to work with this new live stream idea. But obviously, this pandemic situation is with us for at least the next few months, if not, several months or a year, or more than a year. We don't know. We're in the middle of it. We don't know when it's going to end. But what do you think we need to be thinking about from the live music perspective moving forward, thinking about this, unending, potentially waning, but not disappearing pandemic situation? I mean, obviously people are going to start going back to shows, but it's not going to be the way that it was pre-COVID. And these live streams are still going to happen, but it's not the same as live music. What should people in the live event, live music space be thinking about? What should they be doing right now?
Well, they're doing a number of things. There's kind of three schools of thought. That's a little bit too formal of a way to say it, but there's kind of the wait it out. Things will get better when they get better, and just wait it out. Don't do anything. I'm assuming that those are the larger, more established, basically the ones that have the coffers to support not doing any business at all. There's other ones. This is probably the majority of them, which are doing things like streaming. I'm actually really happy to report that last night I found out that my favorite venue in all of Japan, Earthdom, which is located in Okubo, and I thought that we had filmed the last concert ever there, because in communications they were saying that they had some serious water pipe breaks. It sounded like there was a good bit of damage in their equipment. The whole place was moldy. Like, it was really, really, really not a good situation at all. And last night they're opening up their bar, so they're at least still around. There's no concert going on. And it's bar, but I mean, this is the kind of thing. They're opening up a bar in an underground venue that is moldy and has very little ventilation. That's doing something and doing something different, but not really sufficiently different. Because like pre-corona, they never opened up their bar, which most venues don't, which never made any sense to me. It's like, wait, you have a revenue stream ready to go. Just because you don't have a concert tonight, you're not serving. Like, you could make a little bit of money by doing that.
That's funny, because don't most live venues make most of their money on alcohol sales?
Precisely.
And they've got a good stereo system last time I checked.
Exactly. So there's a weird, I can't explain it, but that's always
have a listening party. Shit.
Yeah. Just bring out some vinyl, whatever. But so I was really happy to see that they're at least not totally dead. But that still is representative of, oh, well, we can't have a concert, but we can have our bar open, or let's release, more compilation discs. I like that idea, but that's still kind of a very similar, if not exactly the same thing that was done pre-corona in order to raise funds for, whatever thing. And it didn't really work very well then. And it's probably not going to work very well now. And I get the intent, I get the, the heart and the passion and the soul behind it, but I'm a pretty pragmatic person, and if what you're doing is really well intended but having no practical effects, like, please stop doing that. Right? And so the third kind of mode of thought, right, school of thought right now is, like Anderson Parker, like you said, like murder, I think, is a very good word to describe what COVID has done to live music ecosystems, is that it's effectively dead. And that is a very heavy statement. That's a very sad statement. And it's a very difficult statement to kind of rectify for oneself. However, I do think that is something that needs to be, maybe not admitted, but at least understood and explored, because if that is the case, like it very well seems to be, well, if we don't admit that to ourselves, then we can't move forward from it and build something new. Right, you're going to keep relying on the old ways, and those old ways, the old modes, they don't work. They do not work right now, and it probably won't work for a number of years to come, if not forever, right? And so if we keep doing the old thing in the new way, well, you're just going to keep failing. And so one thing that we're working on right now, not to say that we have the solution, but we're experimenting with stuff, is well, number one, city centers you cannot do them. They are too populous. There's just any number of problems with regards to communicable diseases. So city centers are out. And Inaka is in. Yeah. Woo. Right.
Rock and roll.
Exactly. And that's cool for a number of reasons. But one issue that immediately pops up with that is, okay, city centers are out. Inaka's in. That's great. How do you get there? Trains? Well, no, it can't be trains, because those frequently are crowded and packed, which recreates the problem of city centers. So communicable diseases are still an issue if you're going on trains or buses, things like that. Unfortunately, as much as I do not like cars and very much like public transportation, cars and vans seem to me to be probably the safest mode of transportation available to us right now, right? And so if you have a concert that's outside of the city, that's in Inaka. Well, to get to Inaka, it's usually like an hour and a half, at least from Tokyo, right? And so if it's an hour and a half one way, then it's 3-hour round trip plus at least 4 hours of the concert, right? So suddenly you're looking at like 7 to 8 hours. The way that concerts used to work is, I mean, it's any night of the week, but usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are kind of the big ones. But especially if it's a Thursday night and it's an 8-hour like you can't do that, right? You got work or whatever. And generally speaking, you don't want to day trip a concert because you're probably going to be drinking. Right, and if you're driving, then you once again have a problem. So it has to be an overnight experience.
That's illegal last time I checked. Yeah,
exactly. And so if it's going to be in a safe place and logistically administered safely, suddenly you're looking at an overnight experience, which sounds more like tourism than it does a concert in and of itself. Right. And so what we're doing right now is looking at places, Yugawara, where I live. There's some parks there that we can do. There's a really excellent spot up in Nikko that I've already visited. Who's okay. And that's, I mean, it's like 2-kilometer radius around that place of just nothing but woods and rivers and stuff. And so what we're really looking forward and, well, what we're really experimenting and exploring right now is the possibility of just completely creating a new type of like artistic interaction that is not based on city centers, really. And that's, I mean, it's still super experimental. It might not work, right? But from my point of view, the benefits of seeing if it work, I think far outweigh the risk. And the risk is honestly not that much, financially speaking. But that's the thing too with finances, right? Again, to be safe, you need smaller audiences. Mm-hmm. And if you have smaller audiences and, you know, renting a venue for 8 hours now and not 4 hours costs double what it cost before, but you have 1/4 the audience size, how do you pay for that? Mm-hmm. What are your revenue streams, right? And so there is a number, but fortunately enough, when you're out in Inaka, everything's much, much, much cheaper. Right, the spot we're looking at in Nikko right now for 3 days, 2 nights is 1,200,000 per person. And that includes some food, right, as well as lodging and stuff. And so that's a pretty reasonable cost for a vacation. But another issue that you come up with is when you say concert, everybody immediately thinks what everybody has known up until now a concert is, which is that 4-hour ordeal that you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night or whatever. And they're also used to it being in Tokyo anyway, in the scenes that we work in, usually around 2,000 yen, right? And so suddenly if you're saying it's a concert, but it's like 3 days long and it's like 12,000 yen, suddenly people just start saying, wait, what? Like, I don't even, it doesn't compute. Because you're using the same word to describe
How many
something.
drink tickets do I get?
Exactly. Unlimited.
Whoa.
Right. And so, I mean, these are the kind of logistical and managerial and kind of planning issues that are, I mean, there's a lot of them. And if you don't challenge kind of the status quo, that to me, honestly, like I won't forgive the status quo for what it's done to live music ecosystems. It left it open to some, granted, you know, it's a black sheep event, black swan event, whatever. Fuck you. You left that risk open and now you've killed something that like, it's really very important to me and a lot of people that I know, right? And so I don't want to go back to something that is that porous, right? There needs to be the development of at least an alternative that you can select. If you want to go over here and do the old thing, okay, fine. It might break, but whatever, that's up to you. But we also got this cool thing over here, right? I want those options.
So, Matt, you've talked about, you know, really incredible detail about how this has affected the live music market. And, you know, you're also doing Akiya and Inaka.
Right.
So I'm really curious how the current global situation has affected that project.
Awesomely. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of products out there. And by products, I mean properties. And I mean, really, too, I think we said this in the previous episode where we were talking about Akiya and Inaka. That project kind of started because of the methodologies that I had worked out over the years of doing Kaala with the extreme music stuff, right?
Right.
And so there's a very large intersection there, at least for me personally. But with regards to the global, could you ask the question again?
Oh, that was just my bullshit way of asking it.
Oh, what's the real shit way of asking it?
You went into great detail about how, man, I'm drunk, guys. I only like seriously. I only drink half. I haven't had any alcohol in 6 months.
That's like a fourth.
I know.
Welcome back, old
Dude,
friend.
you guys
to
have no
the
idea.
jungle.
I'm like,
Welcome to the jungle.
so you were talking about no, okay. No. Okay. You're talking about the live music scene, how it's been affected by Corona.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear about your other project that I see on social media. You were bathing in this beautiful river in front of this amazing property. It looks like maybe that industry and that project is flourishing now.
Oh yeah, totally. And actually, I'm very happy that you brought up that specific river bathing episode.
that was awesome.
So that's the place that I want to host these new types of concerts at, or at least one of them, right? And interestingly enough, we were talking the way that I
live from the middle of the river.
Yeah, seriously, live from the middle of fucking nowhere. It's Corona Nights, sponsored by Akiya and Inaka. But no, I found out about that place because I was talking about Akiya and Inaka, and then one of my ex-bandmates, not like I left the band and stuff. We didn't have like a fight or anything. But a number of years ago, he had stayed at this place, which now is called the Earth Hostel, but I guess like 6 years ago, it was called the Zen Retreat or something. It wasn't called Earth Hostel, and it's apparently gone through a number of rebrandings in the interim. But anyway, he mentioned this spot and how it was really cool, total middle of nowhere, has this awesome river you can bathe in. It was in Akiya. The guy picked it up for, I think it was like 7 million yen or something like that about 10 years ago. All this stuff, and I had a little bit of trouble hunting it down, but I managed to, and then I emailed him and said, well, hey, actually, I kind of want to interview you about your experience as an Akiya owner. And I had no real, I don't think at the time I was thinking for them to do anything with music. I had a few other places in mind, but I don't think I had the intention of talking like music business with them. But to make, just like a metaphor, I mentioned kind of data and stuff that I've been doing in music, and I don't know if I said it incorrectly or he got confused or what happened, but he was like, wait, are we talking about are you coming up here to stay or do you want to do a concert here? Because originally I bought this place to be a concert venue and I just kind of never got around to it. So I'm totally prepared to do that. And nice. I was like, wait, what? So that obviously totally caught my attention. And we went up there, or I went up there. Super beautiful spot. It is literally, it's like 2 kilometer radius. There's nothing but the river, the trees, and the mountains. It is silent. It is pitch black. There's this awesome deck and patio. He's a really good cook. You can barbecue there. It holds like 30 or so people. It's got a stage on the inside. It's got all this stuff. It's got some camping grounds around it in case you need more people. And so we talked about doing stuff there. He's cool to do it. I also talked to one of the venues that we work with because they have a whole lot of amps and drum kits and stuff that are very expensive, but they're not really using them because they're not doing that many concerts. And so I asked them very directly, like, hey, if we had a truck, could we just like take your gear and like you can co-host the event or something, but can we just like cart your amps around the country and have like middle of nowhere concerts? And they said yeah to that. So we got the gear, we've got the venue, we need to test that out. So hopefully from the 29th to the 31st or 30th, 29th to the end of this month, I think is when we're aiming to go and actually take a few of those amps up there with our engineer and test it out. But this is what I'm getting at is that these Akiya are really cool for, if you're looking for a home that's pretty cheap and nice and historic and stuff, like, yeah, it's super cool. But if you start thinking of them in terms other than homes, which is to say venues, right? Or office spaces. Like I'm working with people converting them into teleworking spaces as well, right? But even in Yugawara, there's a number of ryokan down there that are interested in hosting kind of like public-private or basically small-scale, limited access events at their ryokan because they don't have that much business coming through with regards to people actually staying there just to stay there. Right. It might be that they turn it into a venue. It might be that just by having an act, you get people to stay there or something like that. But so far as business generation, lead development is concerned, this music stuff and just entertainment in general, it can be any type of entertainment, not just music, utilizing these abandoned structures, abandoned properties, inaka in inaka areas, rural areas, seems to me to be very interesting at the very least, right? Again, it might end up being a complete wash, but we need something more than just streaming. As much as I love streaming, right, it is not the same thing as having the scene like engaged and active.
Guys, I got a proposal for you. All the Western bands want to come to Japan, right? Yeah. And if you guys are setting up something that's going to be a venue in like Inaka, the middle of nowhere, Japan, beautiful scenery, you guys, you should just email Radiohead. Email like the big bands that do avant-garde crazy shit.
Like Bjork?
Yes.
You got those contact info? You got
Bjork, live from the middle of the river in the middle of nowhere in Japan.
I mean, like, part of your like promotion, just fucking @mark these guys on Instagram and Twitter, and send them DMs too. Let people know that you have this set up.
You've been drinking, haven't you?
No, I mean, start off locally. Get a couple, if you can get a couple big Japanese bands to do it, and build up some momentum that way, and get the word around. I would not be surprised if like artists like Frank Ocean, Radiohead, Bjork, these kinds of artists that don't really play shows, unless it's like,
well, that's the thing, which actually goes back to sort of what we were talking about with streaming in a sense as well, is that there's a new medium that's kind of being born right now.
Right,
and I don't know exactly what it is. It's something of a combination. I mean, streaming by itself kind of annoys me, but as like a value add, oh, fuck yeah. Like, please have awesome production for things that I can't go to, but I can buy for 500 yen to view or whatever, right?
Right.
But if you have the combination of the technology and have the combination of the scene and have the combination of the gear and the tourism and the, food is a part of this too, right? Like, get that stuff together so that now it's not just a screen you're looking at. It's also not just a stage you're looking at. I mean, it's really like a mini festival, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, Matt, for those who want to find out more about your music label and this Akiya project, where can they find out more information?
For the label and it's a label and it's a whole bunch of other stuff, but that's Kaala. You can find us at Kaala. That's KAALA, MUSIC, KaalaMusic.com, at Kaala at Kaala JP, pretty much across the board on social. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. For all of the work that we're doing with the abandoned properties and kind of rural communities across Japan, that's Akiya and Inaka. You can find us at akiyainaka.com. That's AKIYAINAKA.com. And we're also at Akiya Inaka, we're at Akiya Inaka on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And did you post that video that I'm talking about of you swimming in that river on Twitter?
Hell yeah, that was. Oh wait, I don't think it's on Twitter. It's. I know it's on LinkedIn, and I felt a little bit bashful about posting my beach bod on LinkedIn.
Dude, if you put
looking pretty good, bro.
If you put it on Twitter, we will retweet it the day that this episode is released.
Okay,
all of our 5 followers will smash that like button.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on again on Tokyo Wave. It's always a pleasure to have you as a guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.